Well, guys, here we are. Beginning of step 4. We gotta make our new girl. And she's not really gonna change that much because, spoiler, I've had the same hairstyle for way too long, apparently. But it works for me, so I'm happy with it. Everything else is still the same here. So let's go to the next page, see if anything changes. Rosy cheeks? Nah. Freckles? Not yet. Weirdly, I started getting freckles in the last couple of years. I think our main character is going to be about 23 or so that's a little early for the freckles. Glasses. I still wear contacts. Earrings. Do I want to keep these earrings? Those are pretty. 1, 2, 3. I want to do little extra earrings. Nah, you know what? I'm just gonna stick with my hoops. Got my thick lips. What else? Birthmarks is the same. Scars are the same. No other freckles. Clothing types. Basically the same. None of these, none of that. Okay, so that's all the same. Ring. Plain. None. Jewel. Jewels. Pattern. Let's go with jewels. It matches my wedding ring, but whatever. My girl's not married in this yet, but I'm gonna go with the jewels ring. Tattoos. I have been and always probably will be terrified of needles, so tattoos are a no-go for me, unfortunately. No headscarf, nail length, short, purple, absolutely. No nose ring. Okay. I guess that's everything. That's me. Not much changed in like 5 years. My feelings for Cove. Alright, so we've been in a relationship now for a bit. So we're gonna up that to love. And probably relax at this point. If we've been like that close for a while, I'm probably a little bit relaxed. Let's see, because I married my husband at 19. So yeah, at 5 years, I'd say I was pretty relaxed. I was getting kind of direct. Somewhere in the mix there, so yeah, I think I'm ready. Relaxed love. I love my relaxed love. Cove customization, no. Tell me what's happening. Cove can... What are the initiatives again? Is it high initiative? I think high initiative is what I did before. Can I save here? Hold on. High initiative? Relax. Start playing step 1, 2, or 3 using the relaxed comfort level. Okay. And so your days growing up in the loving cradle of Sunset Bird came to an end. In the years that passed since graduation, you moved out of your childhood home and made your own way in the world. You... lived with Cove and his fish. I probably... If I had had the choice, I probably would have lived with a pet. I don't know if I would have moved in with Cove. I think I would have wanted to wait in the event we were getting married. Probably. Call me old-fashioned, but that's probably what I would have done. But I would have had a cat. And you worked at a fine company. Had a business of your own, co-owned a business with Cove, that sounds fun. Had multiple ways of earning income, we're still focused on pursuing education. Multiple ways of earning income. Indie. Music industry, art, fashion, writing, TV and movies, sporting, gaming, hospitality, health, education, or STEM. Well, definitely the gaming industry. Why not? Why not dream a little bit? Your family members went through the same kinds of leaps into independence. Liz and Lee both eventually earned degrees and started fantastic careers in new towns. But your moms and Cove's father still lived on the same street as they had for all those years before. It was comforting to you that there were some things that remained in the old neighborhood. And despite the ever-changing reality of your adult life, your friends were still your friends. Though of course things weren't exactly the same for them either. Very recently, Terry publicly came out as a man and switched the spelling of his name to use a Y instead of an I. Noted. He also confessed his love for Miranda! Yay! I can't believe he missed all that, but hooray! Which she excitedly reciprocated. They moved in together recently in the city out past Sunset Bird. One person who did disappear into the shuffle of memories inside your mind was Baxter. After his vacation in Sunset Bird one year, he was just gone. That does happen in life. That was a loss you felt. He had become someone you'd considered a friend during those days. And then there's what became of the sad little boy you grew up with, Cove Holden. Your deep affection for him was something that continued to last unabated over the years. I mean, that would be nice. Yeah, I'll do the top one. Hopefully you would commit to each other even more someday. And luckily, I would like for us to still live pretty close by to each other rather than far. He truly thrived in his continued efforts of cultivating loving and supportive relationships with his family and friends. His personality had changed, becoming more open than ever before. Ooh, we love to see that. Cove was a warm, inviting, considerate man who took the lessons he'd learned over the years to treat the people around him with patience and understanding. When Cove eventually developed a picture of the future he wanted to have as an adult, it ended up being a surprise to most based on his past interests. Cove decided against pursuing a degree and focused fully on building up a career. He got a small business of his own teaching surf lessons, and he still volunteered with Orca when his workload allowed it. That sounds perfect for him. As an adult, Cove also was able to recognize and have diagnosed that he was on the autism spectrum. Good for him. It was something that hadn't been noticed by his doctors as a child, but he was still the same Cove he always was to you, and he was just glad to understand himself better. It thrilled you to see how happy and successful he'd grown up to be. On the whole, life continued its steady beat forward, and you all went with it down the paths you chose. It was strange and wonderful. But no matter how old you got, how far you roamed, or how long you were away, the home you had in Sunset Bird still called you back eventually. We're going home? The car rumbled down the highway. You had started to zone out when a truck in the left lane loudly zoomed past. Your driver didn't remark on it, just like anything else this trip. You went back to staring out the window, letting the scenery pass you by. You did appreciate the spacious back seat of your ride. You hadn't known exactly when you would be coming in, so you had decided to use a ride app rather than ask your moms to pick you up. It had turned out to be a convenient choice. You looked forward to surprising your parents at the door. You smiled at the thought of their faces lighting up. Luckily, this hadn't been that big of a trip for you. You lived close enough that the travel hadn't turned into a big production. However, that didn't make the occasion mundane. For once, your moms had decided to have a modest celebration dinner for their anniversary. Good. Unlike when you were growing up and they preferred not to make a big deal out of it, this year they were comfortable having a party. I wonder if it's a milestone anniversary. As time went on, they had found being the center of attention easier to handle. You were happy to see it. With this going on, there was no way that either you or Liz would miss your mom's anniversary. Both of you made plans to come back home for it. You didn't hear from Liz about her exact schedule, but you hadn't shared yours either. It reminded you of when you were kids and both knew to show up for dinner, but didn't keep each other in the loop for each other's pre-dinner plans. This was the same concept after all. Some things stayed the same, and yet it was definitely different from when you would see your sister every day and knew sort of what she was doing anyways from osmosis. Today you had no idea. Things were always changing. You mused on how at times it was hard to believe you didn't live with your parents anymore, and yet you also couldn't imagine going back and living as a kid under their rules. The rest of the drive flew by. Your silent driver provided a smooth ride. No sharp turns or hard stops jostled you out of your own head. Man, I would tip the silent driver so much money for not gabbing the whole way. I could just relax, look out the window. That sounds perfect. Your thoughts turned from introspective to observant. The landscape passing by became more and more familiar. You frequently recognized the landmarks that dotted the area. A grin came to your face as you passed the "Now Entering" sign for Sunset Bird. Excitement built within you. You were really here. You were doing this. Your driver turned off on a street and you realized that their map program was taking you the way home that Ma preferred. You usually would have used the other side street to pass by the beach. In no time at all, the car had gone through the whole of town and pulled in front of your mom's condo. The car slowed to a stop and parked. With the buzz of the highway gone, you realized that you could hear the familiar sound of waves. The air smelled like salt, and a rush of childhood memories flooded back. You started to gather your things and humming to yourself once more about how happy your moms would be to see you. After that, you'd notify everyone else that you'd made the trip safely. You pulled over your suitcase from the other seat and yanked at your bag from down near your feet. Tap, tap. You startled at the sudden sound of tapping on glass. It caused you to pause. Did you really hear what you thought you did? You weren't entirely sure because you soon heard something else. The window on the opposite side of the car rolling down. It confused you until you put it together that despite the driver's silence, you weren't actually alone in this car. The driver must have pressed the button. Someone had to be there. You turned your head to face the now open window. Hey! Aw, you look beautiful. I love you. You still have longish hair. No glasses anymore, I noticed. Ah, it's so good to see you. There he was, leaning his arms across the window, your beloved Cove Holden. He beamed at you with one of his precious open smiles.
Molly!
Hey!
What a surprise this is! I didn't expect to see you in this neighborhood.
He was joking, of course. Seeing your expression, he decided to push it further.
It's not like I've been waiting for you out here all morning or anything.
You screamed excitedly, you stared stunned. I've been the one waiting to see you, he snorted.
We've both been waiting then.
He then gripped the top of the car door and pushed half of his torso through the opening. That was enough to make the driver break their silence with a sharp, "Hey!" Oh man, you are so handsome! Ooh! Ooh! Step 4 Cove doing things to me. Hello. Cove did not seem to notice and continued climbing in through the window. Cove, please calm yourself. He pushed one hand down into the middle seat to prop his dangling body up. He used his other hand to caress your cheek as he leaned in as close as he could.
I missed you.
You flicked his nose. I'm gonna give him a smooch. He enthusiastically reciprocated. The arm holding him wobbled at your touch, and you could feel him smile under your smooch. He was clearly struggling to avoid falling down onto the cushion. You pulled back a little, just a little, to get a better view of his face. Now get out of the window, you crazy person! I like this one. I really should have expected this. You and your windows.
I promise this was unplanned.
I know. Still doesn't make a difference. Cove's smile turned awkward as his arm started to bend lower, causing his body to slide downwards with it. He turned his head to the driver.
Sorry.
I'm always causing trouble in this neighborhood.
Cove shifted around some more and squirmed back the way he came. After he had successfully pushed off the window and landed on the pavement with a thump, you opened your car door. You threaded your arms through the various straps of your bags and climbed out. Cove took a few long strides around the back of the car and quickly met you on your side. I like that you went through the driver's side and not my side. That poor driver. Like, I don't get paid enough for this. Man, have you got taller? Good grief. I feel like such a midget next to you. Cove stood in front of you, and it struck you that the two of you were back in Sunset Bird, reunited once again on this street. You held your hand out for a fist bump. Stop. Gotta jump into his arms like I always do. Put down my luggage first, for sure. You dropped your bags on the paved road and got a bounding start to leap into Cove. He caught you, unsurprised at your action. Am I that predictable now? When you were situated, he leaned back on the balls of his heels and fully lifted you off the ground. Whee! His goofy grin let you know just how much he was enjoying your enthusiastic embrace. He didn't have a problem holding you up. His especially large height allowed him to lift you well off the ground. Whee! With one last swing, he let you back down. You really were ecstatic to be around him again and absolutely thrilled that it was here in this town where you were together. Cove's schedule had let him come up earlier than you. He only arrived the evening before, however, and secured the hotel room. Even though you didn't live far from each other and still managed to see Cove often, it felt like it had been way too long since your last meeting. Oh! You idly shifted your luggage, then it struck you that you were short one. You got out in such a hurry it was left behind. You reached back into the car to pull it out. Cove stood aside as you made a dash for the door. You shouldered the small bag and felt relief that you would be able to brush your teeth tonight. Phew!
Got everything this time?
You stood up straight, everything truly gathered up and out of the car. You gave the back seat one last glance and then nodded. Cove shut the car door after you had moved out of the way. The two of you stepped off the street to give the driver some room. Cove waved.
Sorry again.
The driver said nothing and drove off. I mean, I don't blame the driver. With the road clear, you let your gaze drift across the neighborhood that you had known forever. It was such a small place to spend so many days. You were flooded with memories of going up and down this street during every stage of your life. Being a little kid, following your big sister to the playground, becoming a teen and staying out later, and growing into an adult who left their parents' house behind to be independent. You could feel the summer sun on your skin from all the times you headed out to the beach. You saw the same surroundings that you as a young adult did when leaving home. It was hard to quantify the amount of history you had here. And now you were back. Despite taking in the neighborhood again, you never lost awareness of Cove's presence. From the corner of your eye, seeing him there was a very familiar sight as well. So many of your memories included him. Your mind drifted from the neighborhood itself to the person who used to live there. You couldn't help the feeling of nostalgia. You still remembered his face, his voice, the scar on his arm from days long gone. He had changed so much since you had first met him, yet even with those changes, he was always recognizable. He was familiar like the sky was, in the way you knew the sea. Every day they may appear different, but they're still an inextricable part of life. It was the world, with help from Mr. Holden and his ill-thought $20 bill, that brought you together to begin with, but the two of you had chosen each other. You had never let your interactions fade. You had decided to nurture your relationship into what it was. And you would continue to keep Cove close into all the rest of your adult years. Cove was the partner you wanted for life. You couldn't be more grateful to call him your boyfriend. It would be impossible to imagine life without him. Cove noticed you staring at him after a while, I'm just having this long inner monologue, and smiled with his eyebrows rising in curiosity. He was very transparent in his question if there was something you wanted to say. You shook your head and returned him a soft expression. You'd let yourself get carried away in a tide of memories, but now it was time to focus on the present. Ready to go see my mom's? Cove nodded and then pointed at all your luggage bundled around your legs.
Can I help with any of that?
It's like carrying in all my groceries in one go. Yeah, thank you. You gratefully passed him a bag. It was a lot easier to balance everything with that out of the way. He used both hands to take hold of the one piece of luggage and stood tall, pleased to be able to provide his assistance. Hey, I know how strong you are, boo. The bag situation resolved, the two of you strolled over to the Wave Rider residence's door. You started to pat your pockets instinctively, only to realize that you no longer carried a key to the house. Aww. Your eyes scanned the entryway, a little lost, only to spy the doorbell. The thought of having to ring it felt super weird. As you pressed the inconveniently placed button on the side wall, you remembered that no matter how much this place would always be a home to you, it wasn't where you lived. Being back here was like putting on a uniform after you quit the store where it came from. It had remained the same, but your circumstance had changed. Cove shifted on his feet awkwardly, obviously also thrown about you being stuck out here, keyless. Yeah, it was weird the first couple of times I went to my parents' home, and it's like, yeah, I don't have a key to here anymore. I gotta, like, ring the bell and knock like a guest. You heard muffled voices and shuffling around from inside. Your heartbeat sped up in anticipation. The door swung open, and there was your mom's smiling face. She immediately brightened at seeing you standing there. Mom!
Well, well, well.
Mom twisted her head back and gave a shout down the hall.
Lonnie! Guess who's here?
There were more distant noises, no doubt Ma getting up from wherever she was to come see. Her high-spirited words rang out clearly.
I hope it's one of my children!
Mom snickered, still holding the door only half open to hide you for a little longer. Cove flushed as if suddenly realizing that he was going to be present for your mom's enthusiastic welcoming of you. You smiled to reassure him that he wasn't intruding. Ma finally reached the door and peered over Mom's shoulder. Hey! Oh my goodness. Both moms are looking so cute.
It is! Hello, Molly.
She gave you a once-over, patting the tops of your shoulders and moving down the sides of your arms before she nodded in satisfaction that you were in one piece.
How sweet.
This is a wonderful surprise.
Ma inclined her head to Cove next, not leaving him out either.
Hello, sweetie. You count as one of my kids at this point anyways. I have double the surprise today.
Yeah.
You snorted at your mom's greetings. They never changed. Cove bashfully waved at them. He hadn't relaxed fully, but he had settled down at their welcome.
Well, don't just stand out there. Come on in.
Your mom moved aside and held the door open for you, gesturing for you to enter. You stepped into the living room. It was comfortable and cool. Cove was a half step behind you, his eyes on a new painting your moms must have added since the last time you were here. Things were mostly the same, but there were more decorations since you had seen the house last. It's true. Mom may have gotten the urge for some interior designing again. It struck you how odd it was to be the guest, only observing their choices for the living space here rather than a full-time occupant. Ma came up in front of you, excitement in her eyes.
I'm so glad you're here.
That's fine.
You know, your mom and I would have been happy to pick you up, but you're self-sufficient and responsible. That's okay. What matters is that you arrived safely.
Mom appeared at her side with a nod.
Welcome back, kiddos.
You appreciated that your parents respected you as an adult, even if Mom still called you kiddo. You figured long ago that you'd always be her kiddo, no matter how grown you became. It's true. It was part of the whole parent-child deal with her. Give them a thumbs up! Stop. Come here, you goobers. You took another step forward and pulled Mom and Ma into a great big hug, squeezing them tight. Their arms wrapped around you in return, and you could feel their love for you in their embrace. It's so great to see you.
Of course. It's always nice when I'm able to come by.
Your moms giggled, pleased. I hope you've both been doing well. Is everything set up for your anniversary dinner?
No problem.
We're happy to help if there's something we can do. We've been plenty fine. It's been a little quiet, but that's not a bad thing.
Mom placed her arm around Ma's shoulder and gave her a side hug.
Don't worry about it.
We're just planning to eat at the Cypress, nothing fancy. Which is kind of a funny thing to say about a pretty fancy country club. The biggest issue has just been making sure everyone could make it for the day. Speaking of which, Liz will be arriving tonight. We're planning on picking her up later. I guess Liz isn't as grown up as Molly.
I always knew it. Mom snickered at her own joke, and Ma lightly elbowed her with a barely hidden grin.
Shush.
As I was saying, we could drop you off wherever you're staying if you don't mind waiting for that. I'm sorry there's not space for you in the house. It's gotten crowded in those old rooms since you and Liz moved out. I don't know where all this stuff keeps coming from. Mm-hmm. Sure you don't, Pamela.
It's okay. Cove already has a hotel room I'm gonna be staying in anyway. Cove sent you some pictures of the place when he arrived. Stylish and roomy, it seemed very nice. Yo, are we sharing a hotel room together? Boy? Yeah, probably a double room. Old-fashioned! I'm old-fashioned. He'd claimed that his bed was comfortable, so you had high hopes about your own. Your mom smiled, relieved.
Kyra's already here, isn't she?
She directed her question at Cove. He bobbed his head a bit to go along with his reply.
Yeah, I heard she made it. She's gonna be staying with Dad while she's in town.
How interesting. So Kyra's gonna stay with Cliff, and Cove has got his own hotel room. How very, very interesting.
Oh?
Have you gone over and said hello yet?
Cove chuckled self-consciously, and this time he shook his head. You raised an eyebrow since you had figured he would have taken the chance while waiting for you. Yeah, how am I the first person you've seen since you've been back? You didn't see Dad? You didn't see your mom? You waited for me? Dude, I don't deserve you.
Not yet. I should go do that now. I just wanted Molly to be there too.
Aw, stop. You're too precious. He caught your eyes with an adoring smile. Mom laughed at that, no doubt thinking that Cove was sweet but ridiculous. He may be sweet and ridiculous, but he's mine.
How nice.
It's nice to know your priorities. Yeah.
Cove awkwardly rubbed his arm and shifted on his feet, looking all too much like he did as a kid.
So?
So, yes?
Molly, do you want to go over to my house now? That's a good idea. We won't be leaving until late evening.
You heard, Ma. Let's go see your parents. Cove perked back up, excited once more. I can't wait to see his parents, too.
We'll keep an eye on your things while you're out. There's no reason to be carrying all that around.
You set down your bags in the living room, tucked into a corner where they wouldn't be in the way. Cove helped. Your moms waved the two of you off as you walked back to the entranceway. Thanks. See you soon. You waved back and opened the front door for Cove. With that, you were on your way to see Cove's family next. This trip put a special little pep in Cove's steps as you crossed the street to his dad's house together. Your spirits were equally high. Doing this, he felt like a teen again. You had known Cove's parents for a long time now. When it came to what you called his dad... I feel like... at this point, I probably would be calling him Cliff. Although it was awkward on your tongue at first, it rolled off comfortably now. You appreciated how much he saw you as an adult and friend, and not just the kid from across the street. For his mom... I love that. Mom 3. She totally would have made me do it too. I gotta do it. A playful grin was already settling on your face, and you hadn't even gotten there yet. It was always fun to hang out with her. Cove hopped up to the front door and didn't bother knocking. He twisted the knob, and it swung open. With a grin, Cove gave you a gratified thumbs up. You shook your head in disapproval, but you both knew that you hypocritically supported his behavior. Yeah, that's true. Your dad is lucky we aren't criminals. He brushed your comment aside and went right into his old home. Cliff was there, standing in his kitchen and babysitting a pan on the stove. Oh my goodness! Look how long your hair is! His head turned at the sound of footsteps, and he brightened instantly at the sight of you both. Cove matched his enthusiasm instantly. Are you taller than your dad now? Good grief. Stop growing! If it was anyone else, you would have thought he was lighting up with a childlike joy over seeing his dad again. But since you knew what Cove was actually like as a kid, you were aware the level of happiness with Cliff was definitely not equivalent to any childhood feelings of his.
Dad! Cove!
Cliff gracelessly pushed what he was cooking to a different burner and flipped off the heat. He rushed over to you both. Cove flew forward and met him halfway in a hug. Cove squished his eyes shut and held his dad in a tight hug. Cliff soothingly rubbed his son's back. The more of an adult Cove became, the more he turned into a big daddy's boy, it seemed. Ah, we love to see it.
I missed you. I miss you too.
It was sweet. And teasing aside, it was wonderful to see them at this place in their relationship after years of struggling to connect. When the hug broke, Cliff hooked an arm around his son's neck. He let out a deep laugh.
I still can't believe you outgrew me. I really thought I had that on him after he graduated from high school, but then he had to keep going.
Chuckling, he shook his fist in mock anger. Cove ducked his head and laughed in kind.
Sorry, Dad.
Cove's cheeks turned pink and he averted his eyes. He was becoming bashful, so you knew he had more he wanted to say. Cove softly added,
That's...
But I was raised really well.
His dad's expression instantly crumbled with emotion. He sniffled. Cove put an arm around him too and tugged him into a side hug. You observed their little reunion fondly, happy to let them enjoy their moment. They were a perfect pair of sentimentality. Look at Cove's little smile. Too cute. Cliff eventually turned his attention to you.
Hey.
So great to see you.
He pulled away from Cove and approached you with a little wave. He was back to his cheery self. Cliff, it's so nice to see you. Come here, you. You went to him with your arms extended and a silent, "Is this okay?" question in your eyes. Cliff pulled you into a big hug without a second thought. There was a quiet sniffle. Cliff's just like, my kids.
I miss seeing your face around here.
Thank you. Cliff cleared his throat, pulling attention to himself. He crossed his arms.
But before we get too carried away, it's not a real reunion yet. Kyra's still in the guest suite. I'll go get her.
He eagerly bolted down the hall, and you could hear every step he took. It ended with a distinct knock.
Kyra, they're here!
It was only seconds before there was the sound of a door being yanked open. The pounding of feet hitting the wood floor grew even louder this time.
My baby!
Mom! Mom 3! Your outfits are always so cute. Next to you, Cove let out a nervous laugh. His parents entered the living room, and Kyra stretched her arms out wide when she spotted you both. Cove went to her easily. Going in for that hug! She pulled you tightly into her arms with Cove. You were squished, but felt every bit of love Kyra held in her heart for you both. Cove wrapped his free arm around her too. He rested his head on top of hers and let out a happy sigh. So cute. After a moment, Kyra let go and pulled back to get a better look at your faces. She surveyed every inch of them and appeared satisfied. You're both looking well. That's wonderful and just what I like to see.
Thanks.
And hi, Mom.
You look great too, Mom 3. One day soon I'll let you in on my secrets. Kyra winked, and you had zero doubts that she held precious knowledge to looking your best. She was stunning every time you saw her, literally what I just said. I'd be honored. So what's new? Have you both been? Look at these goobers, they look so good. Kyra gave a nod for Cliff to go first. Cheerfully, he waved a hand.
No worries.
Oh, same old, same old. Still got the shop, still got my friends and family, of course, and still the most exciting thing around here is seeing who'll rent that one free condo.
It's still... Oh my goodness. Incredible. I always knew you were such a snore. They snickered, and you couldn't help but peek at Cove. He rolled his eyes dramatically, drawing out a few giggles from you, but the whole time there was still a happy smile fixed on his face.
Well.
For me, things have been good. I've gotten a lot of interesting assignments lately. Oh, I recently went to Seattle, and... Kyra twirled a strand of her hair shyly, and her mouth curved into a grin. Whatever she was thinking about, it made her happy. I got rid of the text because I'm like, Do you have a ring on your finger? But she doesn't.
Things have still been going well with that guy from work, but it's a little early to bring him all the way out to California to meet the family.
Cove crossed his arms. He and his dad nodded. It was clear she appreciated the acceptance from her two boys. Her two boys. I love that. I'm really happy for you.
Thanks.
You were honestly glad that things were going well for her. She was clearly grateful for your approval as well.
So, that's us. Do you two have plans for your first day back?
The only thing I have to do is pick up Liz later tonight before we head back to our hotel room.
Great.
He suddenly looked over his shoulder, his eyebrows pushed together.
I'm glad you're here, but I just remembered that I was in the middle of cooking something.
Only a small cackle escaped you while you fought off the giant grin taking over your face. Meanwhile, Cove erupted into laughter that had his dad shaking his head.
That's fine, Dad. Go salvage what you can. I think it'd be nice to explore the old neighborhood for a while anyway, since we've got the time.
Cove directed the last part to you as he spoke, hoping that you'd want to go with him. You nodded automatically. You were already looking forward to it.
That's a perfect idea.
Makes sense.
I think so too. You should go enjoy the day. I'll hang back here so I won't be a third wheel. And someone's got to keep an eye on Cliff before he catches the whole kitchen on fire. Mom, you're not a third wheel.
Cove stiffly stuck his arms against his side like a little child. A small smirk tugged at Kyra's mouth. She winked.
You know what I mean. Have a good walk.
I'll see you both later. Cheerily, Cliff waved before going back to his cooking. Cove smiled warmly.
Bye.
Bye. We'll see you soon. Cove trailed behind you as you walked into the welcoming summer sun. He stopped, closing his eyes to stretch his arms in the warm rays. Satisfied, Cove turned to you and carefully took your hand in his. The heat of that was better and more comforting than any ray of sunlight that could shine on you today. Stepping closer, you squeezed his hand. Your mouth curved into a playful smile. Let's get out of here.
Let's go.
Naturally, you found yourself heading down the road towards the beach. Perfect. This is exactly the first stop I would make if I was here. Your spirits rose even higher as you strolled across the sand, heading for the shopping district. Arriving, you wove past tourists who were taking in the sights for the very first time. Being a local was a badge of honor you wore proudly. You casually walked past the shops. Over the years, some had closed down, but many of the stalls were still exactly the same as they were when you were little. There was something you planned on saying, but the look on Cove's face made you pause. You watched incredulously as Cove's attention laser-focused on something in the peripheral. As the two of you went down the stone street, his gaze stayed parallel with what must have been a stationary object. Then, when his head couldn't turn any further, he stopped in place entirely. You were brought to a halt as well, since his fingers were still laced around yours. Sticking your head out around his side, you were finally able to see that the subject of note that had captured his attention was a pretzel stand. After a moment of silence, his puppy dog eyes swung back to your face. With a cheesy faux wistfulness, Cove whispered a few small words. Hey, there's still time. We could still be pretzel partners. That sounds... Wait. That could be misconstrued. I didn't think that through. Anyway. It's too late to... There's no salvaging that. I'm just gonna keep moving on.
That could have been us.
Stop trying to make me sell pretzels. This was my reaction. It's not too late. We can still start our own pretzel stand.
Really? I better ask my dad about how to get licensed for something like that. He knows business.
Sounds like a plan. We'll be following the pretzel plan in no time. Cove chuckled at your willingness to play along. This was a joke that never died. Yo, but for real, did you want to get a pretzel? Because I'd be down. But seriously, did you actually want to get a pretzel?
Yes, I do.
The one that comes with a little frosting cup?
That's right.
You shared a fond smile with one another. It held a level of second-nature comfort that really didn't exist anywhere outside of the almost lifelong relationship between you and your former neighbor. Somehow, all you ever had to do was simply be together in the same place, and it was special. Cove showed you how strongly he felt the same when he started to become visibly bashful. He plucked up enough nerves to keep the conversation going, though.
So, hey, do you think they'd give me more than one of the frosting cups if I asked?
I don't know, Cove. We'll have to find out. With that, you changed course to the pretzel stand for a snack break. Cove was very pleased by the morsel he picked up, and that was good to see. The sun arched across the sky as you went up and down the road as a pair. By the time you returned to the beach, day was beginning to fade into night. Cove kicked his shoes off, tossing them into the sand. He wanted to get his feet wet in the waves as fast as possible. What? Who am I? No. In seconds, you had your feet free and your shoes abandoned in the sand. You kept going until you were ankle deep in the water. Cove sighed contentedly. You followed his line of sight to the setting sun, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink.
It really feels like summer now.
He wore a bent smile when he turned to you. The light illuminated like a halo behind him, and the sight took your breath away.
In fact, it's hard to think of anything that feels more perfectly summer than moments exactly like this. Being here at sunset in Sunset Bird with you. I'm so glad that we were able to come back for a visit.
You hummed in agreement. Your heart fluttered the moment you met Cove's eye. Your mouth lifted into a pleased smile. Yeah, this one. I'm happy too. The last rays of sunlight glittered on the water, mesmerizing you. You couldn't help but feel like this was exactly where you both belonged right now. Cove murmured quietly, losing himself in his thoughts again. Shortly after, you saw his hand shoot down into the sand. He stood straight back up with a lopsided smile and got to work brushing the sand off his prize. You knew without a single word. Cove found a new shell for your collection. Thank you! As you wandered down the beach, Cove followed at your side in comfortable silence. Your shadows stretched across the sand like they were leading the way. The only noise you could hear were the soft footfalls of your feet and the waves gently rocking into the shore. For a moment in time, it felt like there were only the two of you in your own little world. Eventually, the bubble popped when you realized that your phone was going off. It was Ma, hoping that you were going to be back soon. Curious, Cove's eyes slid down to your phone. You let your hand fall back down to your side. You held the phone pressed against the palm of your hand. It's Ma. She wants to know when we'll be there. Cove scratched the back of his neck and shook his head. His mouth twitched like he just had a funny thought.
Dang, parents. Always trying to make us come home before it gets too dark.
There's no escape from curfew as long as we're in this neighborhood.
It's like we warped back into being little kids the moment we set foot at the entrance sign.
Cove's nose crinkled in fake disgust and you both burst into a fit of giggles. It'd be nice not to have to worry about bills again.
Sometimes.
After one last glance, you put your phone away again. Cove gave a small shrug.
Ready?
Yep.
Let's go!
Together you left the beach, feeling the call of home pulling you forward. The both of you ran off towards your mom's house, leaving the waves behind but welcoming the beginning of summer. Cove and you ran up from the beach, sand flying from your steps. Cove made it to the road first, but you managed to catch up to him by the time you reached the house. I hope we got our shoes before we ran back. It wasn't exactly a race, and yet it also wasn't not a competition. Both of you were laughing by the time you bumbled through your old front door together. You inhaled deeply and shouted loud enough to be heard anywhere in the house. We're here! Your moms were seated in the living room. Their eyes sparkled as they locked on you and your light dusting of sand.
Hello.
Welcome home!
Mom leaned forward, eyebrows raised at your jubilant entrance. Ma sighed wistfully.
Aww.
That brings back memories.
Cove chuckled shyly as he scratched the back of his head.
I hope we're not too late. Nope, you're just in time. But you better start packing it up. Liz will be waiting.
Ma nodded as she stood up from her seat. She lightly ran her fingers over her clothes to smooth out the wrinkles. It took you a second to remember where you had put your stuff. You needed to get it all in the car so you could get everything back to your hotel.
Can I help?
You shrugged and directed him to your bags. With Cove, your moms, and yourself on the job, it only took one trip to the car to get everything. Nice. Cove firmly closed the trunk and you thanked everyone for the assistance.
Of course, kiddo. Come along, Wave Rider family. Let's get in the car.
That means you too, Cove. You know you're essentially family anyways.
Thanks. Exactly. Well said, Molly.
Cove climbed into the back seat with a decidedly touched expression on his face. You got in on the other side. When everyone was situated and buckled, the engine was started and Ma pulled out onto the street. You couldn't help but feel amused to be stuck in the back seat with Cove, your mom's driving you around. It really was like you were little kids again. Cove caught you staring at him and gave you a bent smile. He was probably on the same wavelength as you from the sheer mischief in it. There was some light chatting on the drive. No one brought up anything too deep, and it mostly became swapping jokey stories. The entire trip was marked by a heavy sense of anticipation. Everyone was ecstatic to see Liz and hear what she had been up to. When you neared the airport, Mom pulled out her phone to call Liz. Ma followed the signs to the correct pickup area and asked for you to shout if you saw your sister.
Yeah, Liz, we're at Wing B. There's a blue sign that says North America.
Alright.
Tell her that we're right in front of the building with blue windows. She says that she's outside, right by a yellow truck. I see at least 3 yellow trucks. I think they're doing work at the airport.
The back and forth continued, with Ma driving around in the wide, circular airport road while Mom attempted coordination between her and Liz's location.
Aha!
You leaned forward, peering out the front of the car. A tall, poised silhouette pulled a pale purple roll-along suitcase behind her. It was definitely Liz. She waved to the car. Ma parked along the sidewalk next to her, and Mom put her phone away with a cheer.
Mission accomplished, team!
Ma excitedly reached over to grasp Mom's raised hand, thrilled that both of her kids were back.
Good job.
That's right.
Liz came closer and yanked open the back door beside her. She popped her head into the car, her smile ornery despite how tired she appeared. It must have been a long trip for her, yet her expression was that same familiar smirk that you had grown up with.
Hey.
Hey! Ooh, I love your hair. Looks so cute. Hello, children. I'm back. Rude. Hey, old grandparent who doesn't have any kids. Wow, rude. Liz! Molly! Give her a hug, poker cheek. You quickly unbuckled and then launched yourself at your sister. She wrapped her arms around you and squeezed.
Well, hi to you too, kiddo. Hello, sweetie. It's so nice that you're here. Hi, Elizabeth.
He jokingly huffed at her.
We're not children.
Whatever you say, baby boy. Dang. She turned her gaze back to Mom and Ma. You really know how to make someone feel appreciated. Her spirits were high. You could tell she was just as happy to be here as everyone was to see her. She left the door open, but ducked out to walk around to the back of the car. She opened the trunk and lifted her luggage in. I'm gonna move your junk, Molly. I'll keep it in front of my bag so you can get it later. Ma's dropping you off first, right?
Yes, but that's not junk. It's important.
Thank you. Liz slammed the trunk closed without responding. Liz swung around to the open door. You noticed that her hair had a few flyaways, no doubt from a long day of traveling. She leaned against the frame of the car, giving you and Cove a significant look. I am not sitting in the middle. I already had 5 hours of that nightmare on the flight. There's no way I'm getting in between the two of you. I mean, really, who would ever want to be the person pulling Cove Holden and Molly Wave Rider apart? Cove puffed up indignantly yet again at her classic tease of your relationship. Liz continued along like she didn't notice.
So?
I don't care how you decide who's scooting. I figure you can fight it out somehow. I mean... No, don't move, Cove! I'm the tiny one! I'm meant for the middle seat. It's my place. You're gonna be so squished. No, go back. Cove glanced over at you and shrugged. He unbuckled his seatbelt and moved to the middle. Wow, I have no option to be like, let me take the middle seat. I'm just gonna thank him. My goodness. Oh, man. You're too nice. Thanks, Cove.
No problem.
I'm almost disappointed it was so easy.
I meant it when I said we weren't children anymore. It's just the middle seat.
Liz shrugged, not losing any of her smugness. Keep telling yourself that, and I'll keep taking the window seat. With the window seat open, Liz squished herself into the car and shut the door. When everyone was settled, Ma began to pull out.
Let's go.
We're off!
Liz crossed her legs, compacting herself slightly. She braced most of her weight on the door behind her instead of sitting up straight. It gave her a little more room. Hopefully we finished the journey. This car is almost as old as we are.
Now.
And it's still just as good as you are.
Yeah. All the complaining definitely means Liz is back. So complains Molly. Mom turned up the radio as Mom merged onto the highway. The station was familiar, the normal soundtrack for when she had driven you and Liz around town. Liz bounced in her seat, enjoying the classic tune. The song would be old enough to vote at this point if it was a person. Stop! That's too real. That was hard to believe. With Liz, the conversation livened up despite it getting later and later in the night. She told you all about her week and all the travel preparations she made. By the time she'd made it to the actual tale of travel itself, Liz started chuckling. On the plane, Liz had sat next to a couple of girls who had talked a lot about how well they could read people. Liz recounted their conversation with her in hilarious detail, as they had apparently tried to guess her occupation after only shaking her hand. Neither of the girls could agree with one another, and Liz had refused to just tell them. However, the drive to your hotel was only so long. Eventually, your group arrived. You yawned and got out of the car when it stopped. Cove clambered out after you. Liz gave a loud sigh of relief at all the extra space she found herself with. You and Cove grabbed the luggage and then waved off your family after you said your goodbyes. After they left, you and Cove went to go find your room. It's lovely. What a beautiful hotel room. You scanned the key card to unlock your hotel room. It sounded out a soft beep and you turned the handle of the door. The door creaked open, then you craned your head in to take a look. You saw the two queen-size beds on opposite sides of the room, further separated by a sleek nightstand. It was a prim, modern-looking space. It seemed clean and smelled faintly like floral air freshener.
Can I have the one near the window?
But I wanted the window bed. You just want to be close to the exit, don't you? Cove cackled at your joke.
You've got it. I might have to make an escape through there in the middle of the night.
Fine, it's yours.
Thanks. I got a good hotel, didn't I?
It's passable. Looks like your room at Kyra's place. Come on now. Yeah, you picked out a nice one. Cove smiled like a big, pleased puppy. Good job, puppy. You and Cove managed to continued to chat as you settled in. You unpacked some of your stuff and checked out all the room's amenities. Cove pointed out the mini fridge and started puzzling over what food could be ordered to the room. However, the fact was you both were exhausted. It didn't take too many yawns before you both changed into your pajamas and called it a day. You found the light switch near the door. The plastic was cool under your fingertips as you flicked it off. Cove crawled under his covers. From the lingering light, you could make out him shoving the bedspread off to the side and only keeping the sheet on top of him. You carefully made your way to your own bed in the dark and made yourself comfortable. You had to really use some elbow grease on the tightly tucked sheets to unmake the bed enough to get under them. Oh my goodness, it's so true. Some of those sheets are tucked in so tightly. Eventually, you were as snug as a bug under the white sheets that smelled faintly of fresh laundry. You rolled to face Cove. He did the same, and the two of you regarded each other in the low light. His smile was bashful as his eyes lingered over you, slowly taking you in. His happiness was sweet and soft. You smiled back. It was nice having Cove here with you.
Good night, Molly.
Hey, so do you know why pigeons are called pigeons when they're actually doves? Oh no. No, no, no. I'm not the one that comes up with those crazy questions. I leave that to my husband. Good night, Cove. Cove began to speak again. It was loud enough to hear, but quiet enough that you leaned forward on your mattress to make it out.
I can't believe we're really here. You and Liz and everyone else are gonna be here in Sunset Bird again. I was staring at all the scenery going by while we were driving here, and it honestly felt like we never left.
He ran a hand down his face.
I mean, in some ways it feels like it's been ages and everything's different. Some of that is definitely because I'm staying at a hotel instead of being in my room at Dad's, but yeah.
It's so weird. Cove nodded. He understood completely.
I'm looking...
A yawn forced an interruption into the statement. Cove was undeterred.
I'm looking forward to this.
Same here.
See you tomorrow.
His words were a whisper you barely heard. It might not have been that exactly. It might not even have been that exactly. You might have just been guessing. Cove always had a habit of mumbling. It was okay either way, whether you heard it or only thought you heard. The sentiment was true regardless. Cove would see you tomorrow when he opened his eyes and the sunlight returned to your hometown of Sunset Bird. You comfortably drifted off to sleep and eagerly awaited seeing Cove tomorrow as well.